All right, so everybody was good on M4T2. Again, that information being in the video should be pretty easy for you to recreate. Let me close some of my other windows here, sorry. Okay. Okay. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. It looks like we're good. Yeah, good. All right. I'll look at the program that I'd done last time. So we were dealing with a main, which makes sense. Program's got to start someplace. A square that takes a number and returns the square of the number. And a print answer function. Good. Okay. So print answer is a void function because obviously since it just prints, it doesn't need to return anything. Square is a value returning function. And after doing that, we moved on to this next part of dealing with exponential growth instead of what we call quadratic growth. And I wrote print result, which didn't change. That's exactly the same as we used before. We've got the main here. And in the main, I go through a loop and I get a result by calling this function I named growth and print the answer. Okay, let's give that another run just to look at what we have. Great. Okay, so as we see, this is doubling every time, which is what we'd expect. Or it's 2 to the, 2 to the n. So 2 to the first, 2 to the second, 2 to the third, and so forth. Okay. All right. So that's one program. So this solves the problem of if I want to double every time. Yes, let's look at that. So if I go back to the assignment. No, this one's not. This one, the previous version of that was. Let's look at that real quick. Actually, I'll recreate it. M4T2 is asking us to find a square function. So you know what? I'll just do that. I'll just add the square function. And I'll just not use that growth function for now. I'll just use square. This is a program I did last time. And the only thing that's different about it is like this. I'd say number times number, which is the easiest way to square something. Yep. So in this case, growth is doing nothing. I'm going to leave it here, but in this particular program, it's not doing anything. So now if I run that, what's the answer it gives me? So this is M4T2, simply to go through and print these values as listed, right? So you want to look at not just getting this to work, but also why does it work? Why does it work the way it does? So a couple of little points, which is that the function should go up above main so that they're already declared when you get to main and you call them. We're going to deal with later how you can kind of put them in any order by using includes. We'll deal with this later. In fact, when you look at things like this, like these includes, well, where do they come from? Somewhere else, somebody wrote functions and put them in a file, and this includes those files. All right, so I'll just give another quick look of all this. This is the original program as we described. If I were to, not use growth, but instead use square. Okay. So I'll just comment that out and replace it this way, saying result equals growth number. Okay. Let's give that a run. And I would say if you get this working for now, the M4T2, then a good place to start with M4LAB would be just try to do the same thing for that. Okay. So your first step would just be to write that program. And I'll indeed modify that. Okay. Okay. That was, I will reference this. I'll add that in later. Okay. Okay, so step 2 is a bit of a word problem. So this one I want you to try to solve on your own. So at least for this next class, for the 7th, you should do this for sure. Everybody should be able to get this done. And I'll link in the code so you can see it. And this would be the next part, which I want you guys to try on your own. I will show you how you could set it up. And you can kind of make the adoptions from there. Okay, so let's see here. So what I've said here is I want to find out, this value here, right? This is the print result. But the question was, well, what if you got a penny every day instead, right? So the way you could handle that would be to just change print result to do that, okay? Because if you think about it, well, I need to start with day 0 because on day 0 you have only 1 penny, right? That's how the problem is listed. And so how could I do that? I could say in my print result, I'm going to just comment the old version out and say, now we're printing pennies earned per day. Okay, so I'll say double salary equals result divided by 100. Okay, that should give us a nice double. Why? Because this is, 0 would be the first day. And so I'm going to want to change that in a minute. And I could say cout and let's see if this works. Well, it looks terrible. There's a couple of problems here. We can think of what they might be. So I could say if I cast result to a double, that should look a little bit more like it. Let's give this a shot. Okay. Okay. And as you can see, you already start to get, the numbers go up pretty quick. Now let's think about this. I would want to say number plus 1 because unlike computers, we count starting at 1. So let's try this out. Because again, 2 to the 0, something to the 0 power is just 1. Whatever the number is to the 0 power means it's 1. So day 1 you earn a penny, then 2 pennies, 4 pennies, and it keeps doubling. Okay, cool. This seems to be working. So let's just try this. We said we wanted to do, I think it was 7 weeks. So let's just do that. Let's say we'll do, I'll do 49 days. 7 times 7 sounds good. And we'll try that out. Ooh, okay, so what you start to see here is actually we have a separate problem, which is, okay, on day 27 I make $671,000, which is a pretty good take home for one day. And then the problem is after that I start running out of space to display the values. And in fact, when you see they go negative, that means that it overlapped, it wrapped around. So what that means is with the problem as written, you can't even fit the value into a double. We need to use a different type. And so that means we'll simplify it a bit. So we'll probably, maybe we'll just say we do like 3 weeks, so 21 days. And I'll update that question. Okay. So that's pretty good. And I could say here and say, cout if you started with a penny and doubled that every day. We'll do 30. Yeah, 30 days. That works. We'll do 30 days. And we'll deal with the fact that we're overflowing later. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Okay. So let's look at the question here. The question was, one way you might earn $100 for the first day, $200 for the next day. Okay. Now I'd leave you to write this one because if you think about how that works, it's another loop, but in that loop you just take a variable and every time you just add 100 to it. Okay, so you guys shouldn't have any trouble doing that, and you don't have to compare them or anything. You can just print them both out. So that should work fairly well. So the way I'm going to do that is we'll just say to avoid running out of space, we only do like 3 weeks. All right. So that's that version. And so now I'll say, does anybody have any questions? Because when I upload the old videos are uploaded from Wednesday. So you should get that done. And then you should be able to do this first part fairly easily. And then I want you to try part 2. And if you can't get part 2 done this week, then we'll try to work on it next week. But this is pretty close to being done. Again, the problem of, well, if I want to loop through and add 100 every day, 100, 200, 300, 400, that's much easier math. So you shouldn't have any trouble doing that. Okay. All right. Give me 1 second here. Yes. Okay. So that is a good point. So you do want to start with day 0. So really, this is day 0, and I'm fudging. So if you look at my code here, I do this. Why do I do that? Because when I say the first day to a human being, they think that's day 1. When you say the first something to a computer, they think that's day 0. It's kind of like in Britain. If you say the first floor, that means you go into the building and you take the elevator from the ground floor up 1 level to the first floor. So they call the first floor, we call it the second floor, they call it the first floor. We don't have a 0th floor, and they do. They call it the ground floor. So in the same way, when you print it out, you do that. So the important distinction there is if you change the number, it won't be right, right? So you change how you display the number. Does that make sense? So this is day 0, but when we're talking to humans, we call it day 1. Yeah, it's a little weird, but that'll happen a lot with loops like this. Just because when you tell somebody it's day 0, which makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, how many days have passed since we started counting? 0, because it's the first day. But humans don't talk like that. And so that's a case where you just write your output message. And again, that's why I did this in print result, because when I first did it, I had that error where it wasn't right because it was saying day 1 was 2 cents. And that's because what I need to do is to start one earlier, but then it says day 0. Now I got to fix that in the display. Yeah, so the value that's calculating here is 0 and the value here. So in the same way, when you write the code and you say on day 1 you earn $100, that's probably day 0 the way you do the math. Although I guess you could just do 100 times the day. That would work too. It depends on it. Yeah, so the process I take you through is try to do the first one that's in the videos that were posted from Tuesday. They were posted last night. Then try to make this change, and then try to make the change where you have it in pennies. I'm just going to save this so I don't lose it. Okay. And from there, then you want to write the code where you also show $100 per day. And you can even do that as 2 separate programs if that's easier for you. That's okay. And I'm going to update, after I upload this video, I'll update the explanation so that's a little clearer to see.